The sun had barely risen when Catherine climbed down from the wagon that brought her from her small mining town. She clutched a thin bundle to her chest, holding the only thing she still owned: two faded dresses, a wooden cross that belonged to her grandmother, and an old blue ribbon that reminded her of better days. 4 days earlier, her father had signed a contract she could never erase. 6 years of labor, 6 years of servitude, 6 years sold away to pay a debt she never created. Her heart ached as she stared at the largest ranch house she had ever seen. Pine Ridge Ranch stretched across the rolling land with tall barns, fenced fields, and a grand 2-story home that looked more like a frontier mansion than anything she had known. A middle-aged woman in a stiff black dress hurried toward her with a stern expression. "Is this the new maid?" she asked the foreman. "Yes, ma'am. Catherine Miller." The woman frowned. "Another mouth to feed. Come with me, girl. I'm Mrs. Henderson, the housekeeper. You will obey my rules without question." Quote. Catherine followed her through the heavy front doors and into the wide hallway made of polished timber. Warm lamps glowed along the walls, but nothing inside felt welcoming. Everything was clean, cold, and silent. "You wake at 5, Mrs. Henderson said sharply. "You scrub floors, wash linens, clean the kitchen, and serve meals. You will not speak to Mr. Donovan unless he addresses you first, and you will not look directly at him." Catherine lowered her head. "Yes, ma'am." Mrs. Henderson led her down to the servant quarters, a long, narrow hallway with tiny rooms stacked side by side. The air was damp and cold. Catherine's room had nothing but a small bed, a wooden stool, and a single window no bigger than her hand. "This is where you'll sleep. Be grateful for it. Some girls sleep in the barn." The door shut behind her, and Catherine took a shaky breath. She wasn't here to cry. She wasn't here to fall apart. She had no home to return to anymore, and the debt would remain on her shoulders until every day of work was paid. When she reached the kitchen, the chaos was overwhelming. 3 maids rushed back and forth. Pots clattered loudly, and Mrs. Henderson barked orders like a commander in battle. "You! Wash these!" she snapped, shoving a pile of heavy iron pans toward Catherine. Catherine's hands burned from the cold water, but she worked as fast as she could. She didn't notice the sudden silence until Martha, an older maid, nudged her gently. "Don't move," Martha whispered. Then Catherine heard it. A deep, steady voice. "Mrs. Henderson." The housekeeper stiffened. "Yes, Mr. Donovan." Catherine didn't dare lift her head, but her heart pounded. This was him, the widowed mountain man, the owner of Pine Ridge, the man people whispered about in fear and in respect. "I need my saddlebags prepared. I'll ride to Denver at dawn," he said. "Yes, sir." But something unexpected happened. Mr. Donovan didn't walk away. He paused. His boots stopped right in front of Catherine. Her breath caught. "New girl?" he asked quietly. Catherine froze as Mrs. Henderson answered. "Yes, sir." "What is her name?" Quote. The kitchen went still. No one said a word. At last, Catherine forced herself to answer. "Catherine, sir." "Catherine Jane Miller." "Look at me when you speak." She hesitated. Her heart pounded. Then she lifted her gaze. Lemuel Donovan stood tall, broad-shouldered, with dark, tired eyes that looked like they had forgotten how to soften. A short beard covered his jaw, and silver threads at his temples made him look older than his 42 years. His face wasn't cruel, but carried a quiet sadness, as if he had lost something he could never replace. "How old are you?" he asked. 19, sir." "And where are you from?" "Copper Creek, sir." He studied her for a moment. His eyes weren't harsh, just searching. "How did you end up here?" The truth stung. "My father sold my contract, sir, to pay a debt." Mr. Donovan didn't show surprise. He only nodded slowly. "I expect hard work in this house," he said, "but I treat those who work well with fairness." "Yes, sir." "Good." Then he turned and walked away. When he was gone, the quiet shattered. "You're lucky," Martha whispered. "Mr. Donovan barely speaks to new maids, and never asks names." Catherine lowered her head again, but something inside her shifted. For one fleeting moment, when their eyes met, she saw something in him she didn't expect. Not cruelty, not judgment, not ownership, but a man drowning in his own grief. And recognizing something familiar in her, pain, loss, loneliness. She didn't understand why that small moment mattered, but she knew deep inside her heart that nothing in her life would ever be the same again. Catherine woke the next morning long before the sun touched the mountains. The cold air stung her cheeks as she pushed herself out of the narrow bed and prepared for another day of endless work. But something felt different now. Mr. Donovan's words from the day before echoed in her mind. "I treat those who work well with fairness." No one had ever spoken to her like that, not with respect, not with expectation, not like she mattered. The kitchen was already loud when she arrived. Martha gave her a tight smile, but Mrs. H.O. Henderson didn't even look up. Instead, she pointed to the downstairs hallway. "You! Scrub every board! On your knees! And don't expect breakfast until it's perfect." Catherine didn't protest. She had learned long ago that silence was safer. Hours passed. Her knees throbbed. Her hands burned, but she worked until the floor shone like polished oak. She stood slowly, wincing from the pain, and that was when she heard footsteps behind her. "Catherine." She froze, his voice again. Lemuel Donovan stepped into the hallway. He wasn't wearing his riding coat yet, only a plain shirt and vest, but he still looked like the kind of man whose presence filled every empty space. "You've been working since dawn," he said, glancing at the floor. "Mrs. Henderson told me you haven't eaten." Catherine lowered her eyes. "I'm not hungry, sir." "That isn't what I asked." He held out a small piece of warm cornbread wrapped in cloth. "I don't allow mistreatment in my house," he said in quiet frustration. "Eat." Catherine hesitated, then took it with trembling hands. "Thank you, sir." Quote. He nodded once and walked away. But she noticed something as he left. He looked back, just once, just long enough for her heart to pound harder. The next days were a storm of work and whispers. Whenever Catherine entered a room, the other maids lowered their voices. Everyone sensed Mr. Donovan watched her, not openly, not boldly, but quietly, like a man who noticed things he didn't intend to notice. Mrs. Henderson noticed too. "You think because he asked your name that you're special?" she hissed one afternoon. "You're nothing here, nothing." Catherine said nothing. She simply kept working. But something inside her shifted again when, 3 days later, she was ordered to clean Mr. Donovan's study. It was the one room no maid ever entered alone. She stepped inside quietly. The room smelled of old books, pine wood, and faint smoke from the stone fireplace. Hundreds of books lined the shelves from floor to ceiling. Maps were pinned on the walls. A heavy wooden desk sat in the center, covered in papers. But what caught her breath was the portrait above the fireplace. A woman. Young, beautiful, dark hair, blue dress, tender smile. Mr. Donovan's late wife. Catherine stepped closer without realizing it, drawn by something she couldn't name. Her hand hovered near the frame, but she didn't touch it. She was the light of this house. She gasped and turned. Mr. Donovan stood in the doorway, watching her quietly. Not angry, not startled, just remembering. "I'm sorry, sir," Catherine whispered. "I didn't mean to." "It's all right." His voice was soft. Her name was Mary. He walked past her and touched the corner of the frame with gentle fingers. "She loved music. She loved to read. She loved this ranch. And she loved me more than I ever deserved." Catherine swallowed hard. She had never heard a man speak about a woman like that, with pain and love woven together. "I lost her 7 years ago," he said quietly. "She died giving birth. The baby didn't survive either." The silence felt heavy, breathless, and somehow Catherine found her voice. "Why are you telling me this, sir?" Quote, he looked at her, not as his maid, not as a servant, but as if she were the only person in the room who could hold this fragile truth. "Because you're the first person in years who has looked at me without fear or pity." Catherine's heart twisted. "I know loss, too," she said softly. "My mother died when I was 13, and losing your home, your freedom, That's a kind of loss, too. For a moment, they stood there, two people from different worlds, two broken hearts recognizing each other. Then he stepped back. "You may go, Catherine. Thank you for listening." From that day on, everything changed. Small things, at first. He lingered longer when speaking to her. He watched her in the gardens when he thought she didn't notice. He asked questions about her childhood, her dreams, her fears. And she found herself waiting for those small moments, those stolen seconds when his eyes softened, when she felt less like a maid and more like a person again. But the world inside Pine Ridge was not blind, especially not Mrs. Henderson. "You're getting too comfortable," she snapped one evening. "If you think for 1 second that a man like him would ever give a second look to a girl like you, you're a fool, and I won't allow it." Catherine tried to ignore her, but fear crept into her heart. People like her didn't belong in the lives of men like him. She knew that. Everyone knew that. Yet feelings didn't obey rules. Neither did hearts. The breaking point came on a quiet Saturday night. Catherine was washing dishes when she heard music drifting through the hallway, a slow, aching melody filled with sorrow. Without thinking, she walked toward the sound and reached the parlor doorway. Mr. Donovan sat at the piano, eyes closed, tears slipping down his face. He played like a man remembering his whole life at once. Something inside Catherine broke open. Before she could stop herself, she began to sing. Soft at first, then stronger. A song her mother used to hum. A song of loss and hope. Mr. Donovan's hands froze. He turned, stunned. And Catherine felt breathless shame wash over her. "I'm sorry, sir, I shouldn't." But he didn't scold her. He didn't shout. He began playing again, slowly, gently, inviting her voice back. They made music together, widowed mountain man and souled maid, filling that room with a kind of emotion neither dared speak aloud. When the last note faded, he whispered, "You have a beautiful gift, Catherine." Before she could reply, a sharp voice sliced through the air. "I knew it." Mrs. Henderson stood in the doorway, smiling like a vulture. "Your things are packed, girl. You're leaving this house first thing in the morning." The world tilted. Catherine's breath vanished. But before she could speak, footsteps thundered behind them. "Mrs. Henderson," Mr. Donovan said, his voice like thunder, "she isn't going anywhere." This time, there was no softness in his eyes, no hesitation, no fear. And when he stepped in front of Catherine, as if shielding her from the whole world, Catherine realized something she had never expected. This powerful mountain man was no longer just watching her. He was protecting her. The morning after the confrontation, the entire house felt heavy with tension. Catherine tried to keep her head down as she scrubbed the kitchen tables, but whispers spread like wildfire among the maids. Everyone felt the shift. Everyone sensed the storm coming. Mrs. Henderson moved through the hallways like a snake ready to strike. By midday, the air had grown so thick that even Catherine's steady breathing felt difficult. She carried a stack of linens toward the stairway when Mr. Donovan appeared at the end of the hall. "Catherine," he said. Her heart jumped. His voice was softer now, careful, as if even a wrong breath might reveal too much. "Yes, sir," she whispered. "I need a word with you." In the study, the other maids exchanged looks, some curious, some jealous, some openly scornful. Catherine felt her face warm with embarrassment. She didn't want to give anyone more reason to talk. But she followed him. Inside the study, the door closed behind them with a quiet thud. She stood near the bookshelf, her hands trembling against the linen cloth. "You're not in trouble," he said gently. "Sit, please." She remained standing. "Mr. Donovan, I don't want to make trouble for you." "You didn't," he said firmly. "They did. Henderson and the others who spread lies." He stepped closer, stopping only when he was close enough for her to notice the faint smell of pine on his coat. "Catherine, I need to say something honestly. These past weeks, you've changed this house. You've changed me." He paused, as if steadying himself. "I want you to stay here, and not just as a maid." She froze. Her heartbeat filled the room. "Sir, please don't say things that will make everything worse for you. People already talk. "Let them talk," he said. "I've lived 7 years in silence and loneliness. I'm done hiding from my own life." Before she could gather breath, footsteps thundered outside the study. The door burst open. Reverend Thomas entered first, followed by the trader, Mrs. Victoria, and 2 ranch owners. Mrs. Henderson stood proudly behind them, like she had delivered the final blow. "Lemuel Donovan," Reverend Thomas said sharply, "we need to speak with you." Catherine stepped back, her entire body tensing. She felt the cold stare of every person in the room. "What is this?" Lemuel demanded. "We heard troubling reports," the trader said. "You've grown close to a maid. And that is your concern. Why?" Lemuel shot back. "It concerns all of us," Mrs. Victoria said, lifting her chin. "Your reputation affects the entire territory. Your behavior affects our businesses." "This girl," Mrs. Henderson added in a poisonous voice, "has bewitched you. She is inappropriate, manipulative." Catherine felt her heart collapse. Lemuel moved forward, anger sharp in his eyes. "How dare you speak about her that way?" "Because it's the truth," Reverend Thomas said. "You are being dragged down by someone beneath your station. Send her away or there will be consequences." "Consequences?" Lemuel repeated slowly. "You threaten me in my own home?" Quote, "We warn you," Mrs. Victoria said coldly. "End this before you ruin yourself." Quote. Catherine's chest tightened until she could barely breathe. She could feel it. Lemuel was on the edge of losing everything, his business, his reputation, his standing. And she was the cause. No, she couldn't let that happen. She stepped forward. "Everyone, please," she said, her voice soft but steady. "You don't need to threaten him. I will leave." Lemuel spun toward her. "Catherine, no." "It's the only way," she whispered. But the others took her words as victory. "Good," Reverend Thomas said. "You see reason." Catherine swallowed hard, turned to the group, and spoke with quiet strength. "I am just a maid. I was sold by my own family. I came here with nothing. But Mr. Donovan, he is the most honorable man I have ever met. If my presence brings him trouble, then I will go. But don't you dare say he was manipulated." Silence fell, heavy, sharp. "And another thing," she added. "You claim to defend morality. But kindness is moral, respect is moral, and all he ever did was treat me like a human being." She turned to leave, but Lemuel caught her wrist, not forcefully, but desperately. "No," he said, "you are not leaving." His voice shook with emotion he could no longer hide. Then he said the words no one expected. "I want to marry you." The entire room erupted. Mrs. Victoria gasped. Reverend Thomas turned red. The traders exchanged horrified looks. Mrs. Henderson nearly fainted. Catherine stood frozen, stunned. "Sir," she breathed. "Please don't." "I'm done living for other people's approval," he said. "I want to live for truth, for what I feel." "What you feel?" Reverend Thomas spat. "You would marry a servant? A girl sold like cattle?" "Yes," Lemuel said simply, "because she has more honor than anyone standing in this room." Shock rippled through every face. "This is outrageous," Mrs. Victoria snapped. "You will lose everything." "Then so be it." "You'll be cut from society," the trader warned. "No business, no support." "I'd rather stand alone with her," Lemuel said, "than stand with a society that punishes love." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. Her voice trembled. "Lemuel, are you sure?" Quote. He stepped close. His voice was low, earnest, unshakable. "You gave life back to this house, to me, and I'm not letting fear decide our future. My proposal stands." Her heart broke open. "Yes," she whispered. The room went silent. "Then you've made your choice," Reverend Thomas said bitterly. "You will face the consequences." They left one by one, anger and shock trailing them like dust in the wind. When the door finally shut, Catherine let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Lemuel took her hands. "I'm not afraid," he said. "Not anymore. We'll build a life. Our own rules. Our own future." Catherine leaned into him. knowing he meant every word. And that was the day the maid and the widowed mountain man chose each other against an entire world determined to tear them apart.